Hey everyone, it's Kong again, and here's another episode of Should You Summon? As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. How these characters fit into your team, whether they unlock any bonds for other characters, what kind of content they get used for, and their future availability. So let's get right into this rate-up banner featuring 2 new characters, Patsyr and Towa, from Langrisser Reincarnation Tensei. This banner runs from June 3rd to June 16th, and since it's not a Destiny banner, you have a 40% chance of getting each on-banner character, with the remaining unlucky 20% reserved for any off-banner hero in the regular summoning pool. Patsyr is a demon assassin succubus whose gimmick is that she has a bunch of bonuses against non-female heroes. They use that term non-female rather than male to account for heroes who have ambiguous junk, like Jugler or monsters, for example. Her talent gives her up to plus 30% int and 30% damage reduction against those unfortunate victims. If she damages the same foe twice within a few turns, then she can stun them for a turn. That's her talent. Her 3-cost skill is a 3-line AoE attack that also has a fun passive component that permanently disables all non-female enemies' passive skills if she dies. She's a member of Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda, and Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice. For bonds, she doesn't unlock anyone else's bonds for the time being. That may change as Zilong continues putting more and more Langrisser Reincarnation Tensei characters in the game. We'll have to wait and see. For her own bonds, she needs Bozel for her defensive bond, and Licorice for her attack bond. For content in PvE, she's on faction for Leviar in Eternal Temple, and Fenrir and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. She actually does look set to be a legit meta option in both of the Ancient Beckoning fights. Against Fenrir, she would take over the Yulia or Lana role and basically boost the damage of the rest of your team by increasing crit rate and decreasing magic defense at all times. Against Sleipnir, she can actually take over as your main damage reduction tank, since she'll get 30% damage reduction from her talent, and she can wear Last Rites in her assassin class. She seems less likely to make a big splash in PvP. Her AoE game isn't strong, she has more of a single target kit, and there are a lot of strong debuffers competing for a spot right now. She does have a single target guard ignore that only works on non-females, so if you like her and you run a dark team, then you might have some fun with her. For availability, I'm not seeing anything on the schedule up to and including November, but since we know Towa comes back on a rate-up banner, it kinda stands to reason that Patsyr is going to make a Destiny banner appearance sometime around the end of the year. Towa is an interesting supportive DPS whose gimmick revolves around buffs of all kinds. The duration of buffs she gets from allies is increased by 1. She also gets a boost to attack and defense depending on how many buffs she has. Her 3-cost skill passively makes her immune to the unbuffable effect, which definitely helps since she wants to have a whole bunch of buffs. The active component of this skill is one of those new phase change skills, kind of like Werner's. You can choose an invasion stance or a defensive stance. The invasion stance gives nearby allies increased attack and int, and lets them deal fixed damage before attacking, and speeds up their cooldowns when they defeat an enemy with a skill. The defensive stance gives nearby allies increased defense, obviously, and makes them immune to fixed damage and displacement effects. This is an act again trigger too, so you can use it, and then move 3 more spaces and do something else. So that's her talent and her 3C. She has a couple more neat things she can do too, so I'll just briefly talk about those. She has a 2-cost melee attack that lets Towa attack first if she has a faction buff, and she ignores enemy guard if the enemy doesn't have a special effect from a faction buff. So the wording of that means generic faction buffs don't even stop this, like the SR level ones that only give you stat boosts. It has to be one of the additional effects from an SSR buff. So if they don't have that, they're fair game and she can attack them. Finally, she also has a 1-cost assist skill that copies 3 of her dispellable buffs, so nothing too crazy or unique, over to an ally, and then it lets her move another 2 spaces and attack. So definitely lots going on here. She's a member of Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda, Origins of Light, buffed by Dehart, Jugler, and Freya, and Strategic Masters, buffed by Lanford and Altamuller. Keebs. For bonds, she also doesn't unlock anyone else's bonds yet. For her own bonds, she needs Maya for her defensive bond and Ares for her attack bond. For content, in PvE, she's on faction for Phoenix and Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple, and Jormungandr and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. Like Patsyr, I could see Towa making a strong case for a meta position, this time against Jormungandr, because she'll be able to copy buffs like Attack Blessing over to your other DPS unit, and block fixed damage for a few turns at a time. So as long as she's a decent enough DPS in her own right, then she could boost your team. On the PvP side, she's one of those units whose kit looks very interesting for PvP, but definitely requires the right kind of box or team to make everything work properly. Hilda's probably going to be her primary meta faction buffer, and it's not exactly uncommon to face enemies who aren't covered by their own faction buffs. But then positioning also comes into play, and you have to be careful not to get baited by those unbuffed characters. Personally, I think she has potential for some unexpected dynamic plays, which I do really like, but I don't think she fits in my box. For availability, she should be coming back in November on a Raid Up banner alongside Wheeler. So here's the quick and dirty. We have Patsyr, who has strong bonuses, but only against certain units, and she's a new meta option for both Fenrir and Sleipnir. We also have Towa, who's a supportive DPS who loves buffs. She gets bonuses from buffs, spreads buffs around, and punishes the unbuffed. She's also a new meta option for Jormungandr. Finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners. Next week we should be getting a Raid Up banner featuring Clotaire and Wheeler. So if you missed Clotaire when he first came out, this might be your chance to unlock Rosenseal's bonds. On the other hand, he is also getting a Destiny banner late in the year alongside Rainforce and Lanford, so if you're very patient, you might be able to wait for a guaranteed one then. The week after next, we should be getting a new Destiny banner featuring Emilia, Rosenseal, and Licorice. And then the week after that is when we start getting 2 recurring Destiny banners at the same time. So there are going to be a whole lot of opportunities to plug holes in your roster this summer. Alright, I think that'll do for now. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on summoning this week and what kind of luck you had. I have to admit, I'm not particularly in love with either of these characters, but I will throw a few summons at them and see what happens. I also saved up my monthly accessories and some gambles to see if I can get any of that new gear that was just added to the pool, so look for that video within the next day or so. As always, thank you so much for watching, best of luck to all of you, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, to our Langrisser tier channel members and supporters, Levitt, Derek Gunderson, Kyle Greer-Brown, and William Householder, as well as all of our gold tier members for your generous support.